So I'm pleased to introduce our Strand 5 Inspire speaker, Bernie Kennedy. Bernie taught children and adults in private language schools in the United Kingdom and Asia for over 20 years. She is a co-founder of Red Brick Language School, a cooperative online school launching soon. As a member of the TEFL Workers Union, she is passionate about workers' rights. During Bernie's talk, we recommend watching in speaker view, and if you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A box. So take it away and please share your screen, Bernie.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so okay, everyone, welcome to my talk. Today I'm going to be talking about working conditions in English language teaching. And just to kick us off, I thought it'd be quite interesting to kind of get a feel for how people feel about this situation. So as you can see on the screen, I've got a question. Do you think working conditions in TEFL are fair? And all you need to do is go to MentiMeet, go to www.menti.com and then add in that code. And then you just need to vote whether you think, yes, they're fair, no, they're not fair, or if you're not sure. I'll give you a few minutes to do that. Okay, I've got 3 so far. Okay, it seems to be mostly no's so far, not really surprising from my research. Okay, we've got a few yeses now. Okay, give a few more, a little bit longer. Anyone else like to vote? Okay. Okay, so far we've got 18 no's, we've got 10 not sures, and we've got 5 yeses. What I'd like to do is I'm just going to stop sharing that for now, and we can go back to those results. If you want to still vote, we can check in on it later. So I'm just going to stop my share and I'm going to share my presentation. Okay, so as Simon said, I've been working in TEFL for over 20 years. I've been a TEFL teacher since 1998, and I've worked in a variety of TEFL contexts in Japan, Hong Kong, and the UK. And sometimes my working conditions were okay, sometimes they were even good, but unfortunately most of the time they were pretty bad. And as I became older and I moved back to the UK and I settled here, I found it became more difficult for me to talk about my job in an open and honest manner, simply because it made me feel a bit like a failure. When I spoke to people and I told them I was a TEFL teacher, ironically, they used to respond very positively to the idea of the job, and they generally asked me lots of questions like where I taught, who I taught, how do you teach? And as the conversation progressed, I would just be thinking, do I come clean? Do I tell them that I'm on a 0-hour contract? Because out of approximately 30 teachers in my school, only 2 or 3 have permanent contracts, and that is strictly for full-time workers. Do I mention the embarrassingly poor pay, that despite having a Delta, a degree, a postgraduate diploma in education, that I get paid less than £15 per contact hour? Do I tell them about the lack of sick pay? Do I mention I don't get a pension? Do I tell them I don't get paid for a lot of my working hours, that for some reason planning lessons is not considered worthy of payment? Do I mention I don't get paid for meetings? Do I mention all the unpaid breaks in which I'm usually working? And do I tell them I don't get paid for pastoral care that I provide to my students, or for marking their work and giving them the feedback that's essential if they are to progress? Do I tell them that I do get paid for training, but only at minimum wage? So the other thing that would be going through my mind is, do I tell them that I put up with all of this because I'm scared of moving to a new school? Because for me, it was just too risky. I'd find myself at the bottom of the pecking order when it came to getting hours, not just in terms of the number of hours, but how they were given. Would I suddenly have to deal with random 2-hour breaks in my schedule again, making my part-time job a full-time job, but with part-time pay? And if the student numbers were low, would I get any hours at all? It just seemed too scary, and I'd have even less security. So it won't surprise you to hear that, no, I wouldn't tell them all that. I wouldn't want to put them on such a downer. Instead, I'd tell them all the things that I loved about my job. And there are many, but I sometimes felt like a fraud. William Simpson, lecturer at Tokyo University of Science, in his article, Working in the Global ELT Industry, Is It Just Me?, recognises how challenging it is for the average person to fully grasp a global billion-dollar industry like ELT. He recognises that we share similar experiences and we face the same struggles, but because of the size and the nature of the industry, that connecting with one another is difficult. And because of this, we tend to assume that the problems that we face are endemic to the school, the city, or the country in which we work. But that's not true, as Simpson's research paints a picture familiar to TEFL workers wherever they are. It's not just you. He shows us that in the...
Sorry, Bernie, sorry to interrupt, but we can't see your slides. Are you sharing them at the moment?
Oh, I am sharing them. You can't see them.
No.
Ah, okay, let me...
I'm trying again, please. Thank you.
What's going on? Okay. Can you see them now?
We've got them now. Yeah. You just need to make it full screen, but yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Hold on, let me just work out. So can you see that? Let me just...
Yeah.
Let me just stop share for 1 second.
Okay.
Right, can you see that? Can you see?
Not yet. It was.
Okay.
Can you Oh, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming.
Now I can't see it.
Not yet, no.
No, it's hiding on me. Hold on. There. Is that good?
We've got the Mentimeter screen. I think you want to take your PowerPoint. Yeah?
Let me just close that. Let me just, sorry guys, apologies.
Don't worry, don't worry. These things happen to all of us. It's fine.
I knew I shouldn't have done the Mentimeter thing. If I close that. Okay, how's that? Is that working?
Not yet.
Oh, why is it not? For me, it shows it's working.
It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. We can work with that. That's great. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Great. Super. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. So, yeah, so let me just recap where we're up to. So in his article, working in the global ELT industry, is it just me? Lecturer at Tokyo University of Science, Will Simpson, shows that it's very difficult for the average person to comprehend a global multi-million-dollar industry like ELT. And despite sharing similar experiences and struggles, the nature and size of the industry makes it very difficult for us to connect with one another. And we often assume that it's just the school, the city, or the country in which we're working. But the picture that his research paints shows that it's not just you, that it's a global industry and it's a global problem. So, for example, in the USA, Kaplan, one of the large language school chains, maintains teachers' hours below the required threshold that stops them from being legally entitled to benefits such as holiday pay, sick pay, or adequate health insurance. The same situation is found in Japan. In Canada, teachers contribute 2 to 3 hours of work a week that goes unpaid. This seems quite low to me from my experience in the UK and Japan, especially for newly qualified or inexperienced teachers. In Spain, a collective agreement between language schools and teachers represented by unions, unfortunately, because the unions are quite weak there, they only managed to secure just over €12 an hour. And although it looks quite good, they got 14 days holiday. That was actually a reduction from 21 days holiday, and they only got 1 paid hour of prep time for every 30 teaching hours. In Ireland, the Irish government commissioned a report into the feasibility of the statutory minimum requirements in Ireland's ELT sector, and found that only 20% of teachers actually receive any payment for planning lessons or any other associated duties that are not contact time with students. All this is without throwing in the Wild West that we otherwise know as online teaching. Yes, you can work from the comfort of your own home, but can you really set a schedule that suits you? Who benefits from the flexibility that these online platforms and schools tout? No prizes for guessing, it's generally not the teachers. An extreme example comes from the Philippines, where they actually only pay $1 per hour for teaching online. So we all know that online learning was on the rise even before the pandemic boom, but most online teaching jobs are actually non-jobs. It's self-employment via an online platform such as Preply, italki, Cranberry and the like. Teachers frequently have to market themselves, they have to compete with one another, and the companies that do actually offer jobs in that they give you a number of hours and they find the students for you, are often restricted to native speakers only. They also generally don't require any teaching experience, and the salaries reflect this. The online platforms also take large commissions. If we look at Preply, for example, for the first hour you spend with any new student, you will be all your money will be taken from you. And then the commission rates range from 33% to 18%, depending on how many hours you work. The more hours you work, the lower the commission rate. But if you look at, to get 18%, you'd have to work for over 400 contact hours a month. I calculated on a 30-day month, working 6 days a week, that would be 13.3 hours of teaching time a day. Just the logistics of timetabling students like that would be pretty impossible, I would say. And this is without the fact that platforms like Preply flood the platform with tutors, not teachers, and there are currently nearly 28,000 English tutors on Preply. The teachers on Preply are desperate to climb that students' rating ladder to gain further students, and I found teachers offering as little as $2 an hour for classes. Again, no prizes for guessing that they were non-native English speakers or speakers of a less valued English, for example, South African English. But a lot of them, if not most of them, were qualified teachers. Another big winner from the pandemic was PALFISH. Some schools go so far as to gamify teaching, as does PALFISH. The more you work, the more points you gain, and you climb a league table where your hourly rate increases and your pay rises in tandem. But unfortunately, they generally don't offer benefits like sick pay. Instead, they offer fines, so you can get fined for being ill or absent if you cancel a lesson less than 24 hours beforehand. If you're late, even if it's second, you will be fined. And there are fines for failing to complete admin within the deadline. Sometimes these fines are implemented where you are frozen at a certain level for a month. So just being late for a class for a few minutes, no matter what the reason, or if you've got a genuine absence, you can suffer financially. So the pandemic obviously has had a big impact on ELT. And when the pandemic arrived, my first thought was, who's going to be paying for this? Is it me? And I just want to kind of show you how the pandemic unfolded in the UK, because from my research, it sounds pretty familiar from in other countries as well. So in the UK, between January and March, when the pandemic arrived, it was pretty much business as usual. 37% of teachers who responded to a survey from the TEFL Workers Union felt that their health and safety had been compromised in this situation. They were in crowded meetings, there was lack of advice for students if they felt sick, inadequate provision of hand washing facilities, and teachers suffered poor mental health as a result of the bad communication. During this time, 27% of teachers had to self-isolate, either because they came into contact with someone that had COVID or they had symptoms themselves. And of that 27%, only 14% received sick pay. The lockdown here was announced towards the end of March, and that's when classes went online or teachers were furloughed at 80% of their pay. The furlough was the UK job retention scheme, which guaranteed salaries for people that couldn't work because of the pandemic. And then very quickly afterwards, the redundancies were being announced by the major chains. A survey by the TEFL Union in July showed that 20% of teachers had already lost their jobs. So 2020 was a tough year for TEFL workers, with school closures and mass redundancies. Analysis by Bonnard, detailed in the pie News reports that 159 closures took place in language schools in 2020, and up to September this year, 73 had closed. But it's important to note that 56% of these closures were strategic decisions by big chains. So EC closed centres in New Zealand and Australia, Stafford House and St Giles withdrew from the US, Berlitz, Kaplan, EC, EF all closed down schools in less attractive cities. They also had mass redundancies. We've also witnessed the closure of high-profile schools such as International House in Barcelona. And in addition to that, some 200 schools are in hibernation. So they're basically not accepting any inquiries from international students. So the IWW estimates that 50% of TEFL workers lost their jobs in 2020. And if you survive the redundancy process, it's likely you are going to be forced to accept a pay cut or a reduction in benefits or poorer working conditions. Workers at Kaplan were forced to accept a 10% salary cut. And Bonnard again told the Pie News this September that over the next few years, it anticipates massive bloodletting and an even more intense wave of school closures in the next few years. And it's clear that the ALT industry is passing a lot of this financial burden onto those who can bear it least, i.e. the workers. So it paints a pretty grim picture, but we can be inspired. By acting collectively, we have and we can hold them to account. The TEFL Workers Union is less about traditional worker representation in pay and conditions disputes, and it's more about giving advice and support, helping workers organise themselves, make demands, and basically keep management within the bounds of the law. As the pandemic rolled out, they provided redundancy law training online for hundreds of TEFL workers, whether or not they were in the union. They facilitated communication between elected redundancy reps in various branches of the same school. And they closely supported teachers and workers through the redundancy process by offering them support and advice. And through this, they managed to hold management to account. So I'm going to share with you some stories. There's so many stories in my research. Like, I read some really heartbreaking stories from large schools, small schools, individuals. But obviously we don't have time to do that now. But some of the stories, Delphin School in 2019, pre-pandemic, managed to get some guaranteed hours, paid meetings, paid professional developments and sick days, and a pay policy. Unfortunately, then they faced redundancy because of the pandemic, but the union actually managed to secure an enhanced redundancy package for them. EF was also one of the companies that underpaid holiday pay during furlough. There was a collective grievance and employment tribunal, and this resulted in awarded back pay to hundreds of workers across all the different schools. About £100,000 is estimated to have been paid out. In addition to this, they refused to pay furlough to teachers that had left the UK during the pandemic, even though they could have taught online. This was challenged by the union, and they backtracked, and these workers were also placed on furlough. The union also supported EF teachers when they didn't get paid for mandatory training for health and safety and safeguarding, which was compulsory. It's actually illegal, and again, teachers were awarded back pay. Kaplan, another big chain, denied workers were continuously employed for more than 12 months by using rolling fixed contracts. This meant they weren't entitled to redundancy pay. They were eventually given this if they had worked for more than 4 years at Kaplan. There's an outstanding tribunal for work teachers that worked less than 3 years there. Bogus self-employment is a big problem in EFL. It denies workers their basic rights. The overseas teacher did this. They also had below minimum wages, fines for being absent. Teachers were sacked en masse prior to Christmas, and the union raised thousands of pounds for them. And it was a similar sad story at Language House London, bogus self-employment, unpaid wages, and they were awarded £40,000 in back pay, nearly. So there have been many attempts at self-organising in the past. In 2014, Paul Walsh and Nicola Prentice of Simple English proposed a Teachers as Workers special interest group after a Twitter survey showed it was a popular idea. However, this was rejected by the TEFL leadership and the SIG coordinators and the TEFL trustees, according to Paul, who claimed there wouldn't be enough demand, that it wasn't related to professional development, that it wasn't a suitable vehicle for improving working conditions, and the expectations that the SIG would intervene into local disputes. Paul disputed this online, and once he got 200 people supporting the idea of the SIG, they decided to go ahead and just to have the website instead. And this is supported currently by the Unite English Language Teachers Union and TEFL Workers Union. And on there you can find some information kindly provided by Blair Matthews that gives you a detail of your workers' right in various countries. So if you want to contribute to that, I'm sure they'd be very happy to hear from you. So as I said, I did a lot of research for this presentation, and not once did I come across any information from any of the flagship organisations in terms of working conditions for teachers. And I think because of this, some teachers have decided to take control over their professional lives, and they're cutting out the middlemen and they're starting cooperatives. So you might want to ask the question, well, why? How would a cooperative help? Well, basically, a cooperative aims to provide a better service for their members and their users. So in the case of TEFL, the members would probably be the teachers and the students, either as the users, also as a multi-stakeholder member. It depends on the type of cooperative that you have. There are many different types. They come in lots of shapes and sizes. The main benefit is that you collectively own the business. No one is extracting a profit from your labour. This means the cooperative can afford to genuinely pay a living wage to all its workers. You collectively run the business. It's one member, one vote. All members take part in the collective decision making of the cooperative. You won't have managers who don't understand what it is to be a teacher telling you how to run your classes or what to teach or when to teach or how to teach. You can also collectively decide how any surplus made by the co-op should be spent. So this could be distributed to the members as a bonus. It could be reinvested back into the cooperative, could be donated to a charity. You could use it as a social impact. For example, my co-op, we're going to offer free and subsidised language lessons to immigrants. But whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It could be a combination of these things. The important thing is you decide. And everything that you do at work is for the benefit of the co-op. And because you own the co-op, collectively, it benefits you. Back in 2014, as I mentioned, there are different types of co-ops, and some of them that we found in ELT, we get a services co-op, you can get a worker collective, and you can get a platform co-op. And SLB Services set up in 2014. It was established by 3 English teachers and a Catalan translator, and they basically offer services to freelance teachers who join the co-op. They value quality, not quantity. They offer tailored language courses, specialised translation and proofreading services. My co-op is a worker collective, Frederick Language School, which I founded with Lucy Stevens. We did this because we wanted to put pedagogy before profit. We wanted to pay teachers a genuine living wage that befits their professional skills and experience. And an example of a platform co-op is the New Kids on the Block, mycoolclass.com, who was inspired by founder John Hayes' experience of being exploited by palfish. So I'm about to finish, Simon.
Okay,
Yeah.
1 minute, yeah.
I've got 1 minute, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to tell you what the lessons that we've learned. So even respectable skills will try to exploit you and deny you your legal rights. So you need to be informed. If you work in TEFL and it's possible, you should join a union. Big wins against big companies are possible. When we stand up together and stand together, we win. Don't accept the status quo. Identify one thing you want to change and self-organise. And take control. Join or start a co-op. Thank you very much.
Hi, Bernie. Sorry I had to interrupt you there. That's really good. I mean, very sobering on the kind of the messages and the things that are happening. But I think you finished there with some really good ideas and suggestions for all of us. And I hope that, you know, we can work together and perhaps get better conditions for us in the future.
Yes, thank you very much for giving TEFL workers a voice today.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We're going to have a 5-minute break now. So we will see you very shortly. Okay.